So, welcome to the Burlington Arcade, cited as the world's first shopping mall. Now, believe it or not, this actually used to be an open-air alleyway that backed onto Burlington House just over and on my right. It was owned by a man called Lord Cavendish and his wife, Lady Burlington, hence why we call it Burlington House and the Burlington Arcade. Now, you see, when this place was built back in 1819, we didn't have a rubbish system. When you were done with something, you simply flung it out of your window and you pretended that it never existed, including your chamber pot, which is where the phrase garde-lou comes from. Essentially means, watch out for the flying poo. Now, what happened was one day a lady stood in this open-air alleyway holding her cat in her hands because sadly it has passed away and she no longer has need for it. Now, instead of holding a funeral and burying the poor creature like most normal people would do, well, she held it in her hands and she launched it over the wall, flying over and into Burlington House, and it lands square on Cavendish's head. Now, not exactly too pleased by these turn of events, Lord Cavendish decided to build this covered walkway so that a dead cat would never be thrust upon to his head ever again. It's genuinely why he built this place. However, swiftly after building it, he realised he was being a bit of a selfish toe rag and had a look down this area and thought, yes, this would be a brilliant area for industrious women to come and sell their products and for affluent women to come and shop in safety and security, thus creating the Burlington Arcade. Now, the way that it works, if you go all the way down the far end on the right-hand side, that is number 1, Amiga Vintage Watches. This is number 34. And Imperial is 35, and go all the way down the far end onto the left, this is 73. The idea being that patrons would parade up one side, turn around and parade back down the other. Now, if you were to walk through the Burlington Arcade, you'll notice that it's ever so slightly sloped. And the reason being is because Burlington Gardens, where I'm currently stood, is around 1.5 meters taller than Piccadilly down the other end. And the reason there are no stairs inside of the Burlington Arcade is because, well, this would interrupt a lady's perambulation through the arcade. And I'm very glad we don't use words like that anymore because I'm highly dyslexic and I wouldn't get very far in today's society. Now, this chap just stood over here and onto my left. He is one of the Beadles of the arcade, known as the Burlington Beadles. Beadle is just an old English word for security guard. Now, they are cited as the world's smallest and oldest private security force, and they take their job very seriously and make sure that nobody breaks any of the rules inside of the arcade, of which there are quite a few. So you must never run, whistle, shout, sing, swear, open an umbrella, push through a bicycle, or do anything that is considered ungentlemanly. Now, the reason being is because pickpockets used to do all of those things. So an affluent person would begin to walk through the arcade. I, as a pickpocket, would then whistle. That person is now marked. By the time they got into the arcade, one of my fellow pickpockets would know that they are ripe for the taking, steal their watch and grab their wallet. They would then begin to sing, "Aha, I have gotten away with it." Now, depending on which tune they were singing, this would tell us where to meet in the arcade. We would open up an umbrella and do the money transfer behind it, and then we would quickly shut it and then run away. The reason you're not allowed to swear or do anything considered ungentlemanly is because, well, you're in Mayfair, so act like it. The reason you're not allowed to push the bicycle is where you don't need a bicycle when you're shopping, so kindly leave that outside. Now, as much as this is a lovely story, I might as well tell you the seedy side, because that's more fun. The windows right up at the top, this is actually cited as London's original red light district. You see, back in 1819, when this place was created, prostitution had thankfully been made illegal. Now, what happened is the general definition for prostitution is the giving of money for the sale of sex. So what happened is there was never any money transferred. What would happen is people would walk through the arcade, find a single lady that took their fancy, and then present them with a gift that they had found in the arcade. Now, the single ladies had the opportunity to either keep the gift or take it back downstairs with the gift receipt and get the money back for it. These must have been some of the most well looked after single ladies in all of London's history, because these are some of the most delightful shops in all of London. So please head your way down through the arcade and I shall meet you back here in a minute. Cheers.